We can now put our fuselage frame, our airframe, to one side, and we can start preparing the skin for the fuselage. Just pop that over here, and the first thing we'll need is our scoring and beveling guide, and we will need part Z1. So what we need to do with this part now, and I've actually also begun to prepare this, as you can see, is actually score and bevel the areas that are indicated on the guide itself. Now, there also is on yours some indications to put a bevel at the rear here. It isn't on this one because this was prepared earlier, but on yours you'll have the beveling down there too. I've already scored these here using this particular method, just placing the part on the guide itself, and you can actually attach it if you want using some low tack tape, and literally just popping the straight edge on the score line, and then using my scalpel at the back edge of it rather than the front, just running that down the straight edge a couple of times, and that puts a nice score into the material itself, so that it can be folded up like so when it comes to actually installing it onto the fuselage frame. There are a couple of things to note on this part. You've got a couple of holes here. They are for the control rods that exit the fuselage at this point. You've also got some scored areas here that have been laser scored. I don't know if you can see that. There we go. Those are actually the cavities for the horizontal stabilizer to sit in. We're going to keep those in for now until this is installed on the fuselage, just to keep the integrity of the part itself. If we take these out now, this area becomes quite fragile. You've also got a couple of little holes here and here, and that's where the aileron control rods go through the fuselage. And you've also got, on yours, they're probably not holes there, they're scores. You can cut those out now. And that's where the wing brace goes into the fuselage itself. And it's also a very good way, with that cut out there as well, of aligning the skin as it goes onto the fuselage. There are other slots and bits as well that will become apparent what they are during the build, and you now basically need to bevel the curves there and there, and the sides and front there, and that I do off the table, just by using the lower the least aggressive side of the sanding stick, and pop my fingers just behind the edge itself, and then use a little pressure to put the 45-degree-ish bevel in place. Well, the only area that I haven't done is at the back here, and so I'll just go about sanding that down. And basically most of this sanding that we do is to just reduce the amount of white material that we see at the edge. There we go. A little bit more. Excellent. The other thing that we can do to make the installation of this onto the frame a little easier, because although the score allows us to bend, it does tend to flex out quite quickly. If you reverse the fold on this carefully, then what you can do is just run your sanding stick down the score, and that essentially just removes a little bit of material and stops it springing back as much. But you've got to be careful you don't go all the way through, because obviously then you'll get a split in the skin. So that's a little easier. I'll do the same on this side. You can see I'm being quite careful when I do the fold, and then get it to at least 90 degrees. And then just very gently sand along it. There we go. So that's a little easier on the fold, and you can overfold these slightly just to move that material out of the way. Excellent. Now there are a couple of things that we need to do to this fuselage before we present it to the fuselage frame. We need to strengthen the areas where the control wires go through for the ailerons, the torsion rods, and we should have a couple of star-shaped parts. Let's just move that away for now. And this is 2 P6s, and you'll notice that they are star-shaped, and they also have a little oval cut out at the center of them, and obviously that oval goes over the hole itself. So I'll just cut these 2 out, and then we apply it to the inside of the fuselage. So they literally sit over that hole on the inside, like so. So we just apply a little bit of glue. And then pop that over the hole itself, align it. You can check alignment just by popping the tip of the scalpel through just to make sure, and then we can crack on with the other one. Keep going for the mouse, thinking it's the glue. I might just be losing my mind slightly. Go. Yep, that seems to be there. That's great. Okay, so now comes attachment time. So you'll notice on the keel itself you've got this little tab here that's about a millimeter in depth. That actually sits into this slot here. So we can dry fit this just to check everything first. You notice that the legs basically sit between the 2 sides at the moment, and you should be able to pop that into the tab into the slot there. It should be quite a tight fit, but make sure that you push it as far forward as it will go, and then everything else should line up along the bottom of the keel there. So what we can do now is just apply glue to the bottom of the keel. And out along the formers as well. No need to put it onto the top of the tab because that protrudes through. And then all the way down the back here to around about that point just there, where the fuselage, or the bottom of the fuselage, stops. So now we can bring the part together, the two parts together, pop the tab into the slot, make sure the fuselage is slid forward as far as it will go with that tab in the slot, and then just make sure everything is pressed firmly up against the keel and is sitting centrally along that keel as well. And then we just let everything, or let the glue dry on that, and then we can start bringing the sides up and attaching those to the fuselage frame. So now that's nicely stuck down, we can start thinking about bringing the sides of the fuselage skin up. And when we do that, just sort of as a dry fit, you'll notice that we can align things that need aligning when we come to stick all of this down. So the process of attaching this skin can be done in a piecemeal, a piece by piece method, so that makes it easier for us to get the whole process done. So points to note, well, firstly, obviously when you fold the two sides up, you'll need to make sure that the two parts here that come together at the top, they line up nicely, like so. If we work further down, the hole here and the cutout here need to sit over the hole that we've created. So you can see there for the wing brace. The top of the skin here should sit neatly against the 2mm side cheek that's on the inside there, and when it comes forward to the nose piece, the 2mm nose piece, once again the top of the skin there should sit neatly flush against the top of the nose, just like so. And you can have a little bit of material projecting forward from there because we've got some material that goes over the front here, so don't worry if you've got a little bit protruding. So, and that goes exactly the same rules for the other side as well. So we can start the process of sticking this down. I'm going to do the tail section first. So I'm going to just apply glue to the sides of our formers here. Obviously it doesn't go right up the side, so you can just estimate where it's going to go, like so. And obviously the rear of the fuselage skin sits up against the keel at the back there. So with that done, I'm actually going to press this up against the glue that we've just applied so that it transfers over onto the 2mm at the same time, and then we can let that dry off and we can use the properties of the glue once it's dry to bring the side together without having to tape it all up or just sit and hold it. So whilst that's drying off, I'm going to do exactly the same on the other side. Like so. And then once again bring that side up to get glue in the right places. There we go. So I'm just going to give that a few minutes to dry, and then we'll come back and start the folding process. Okay, a few minutes to let that dry. So what we can do now is just bring those sides up so that they stick down. And as I said before, the first thing that we need to do is make sure that the two edges here sit level on the fuselage, and that'll help get the horizontal stabilizer straight as well. So that's all nicely stuck down now, and we can turn our attention to the front portion of the skin. So this might need a little bit of pulling around just to make sure it fits. And I'm just doing a little bit of another dry fit just to make sure I know where everything's going to sit. What's very important is that we have, I'll show this to you, that cutout there over the cavity that we've created in the airframe for the wing brace. So just make sure it sits over there correctly and that the skin once again sits flush with the top of the 2mm fuselage too. So I can now just sort of gently hold the fuselage skin back while I apply glue to the appropriate areas. So any surface that comes into contact with the skin on the 2mm, especially the sort of the side cheek and the sides of the formers, that's fair game for a spot of glue. You don't have to be too lavish, but just make sure that all surfaces get a little bit. And obviously right up at the nose here too. So it sits alongside. There we go. Right, I'm going to do this one side at a time now. It just makes it easier to make sure we get good alignment. Just make sure I've got glue on all the surfaces, and then I'll just let that fall apart again, and we'll just let that dry for a little while, and then we will bring the surfaces back to bear on each other. Well, I didn't get to show you bringing this side together with the fuselage. Unfortunately, the camera wasn't working at the time. Probably my fault. But I've done exactly the same on this side. And so what I'm going to do is just bring this together, just making sure everything lines up. As I said, it needs a little bit of a sort of a pull and a push, just to make sure all the parts come together. There we go. So because there's plenty of glue there, it grips it really well. And you can use this sort of open flap area here to just make sure that you can get into all of the areas to make sure everything's pressed down together, nice and secure. So, and I've got a little bit of an overlap on the front there, which is fine. So I've still got this cavity here in which we can put our wing brace, which is great. So the next part of attaching the fuselage is pretty obvious. We just need to bring this part down onto the nose area of the aircraft itself, and obviously our little beveled edges down the sides here come together. So we're going to just apply some glue to the areas that come into contact. So right underneath here, you can see there, I'm going to apply it down the keel all the way to the nose area there. We're going to apply some down the channel at the front here, there, and there, and then some up on the 2mm that's exposed at the side here, and a little bit of overrun onto the 1mm side as well, on both sides. And then we'll bring this part to bear just to make sure that we get glue in the areas that we need it on both edges. Go, and just let that fall apart again. I've got some glue on the surface here as well through the getting some on my fingers, but we can clean that up later. I won't try now because obviously this is very flexible, but we'll certainly remove that before we move any further with the build once this is down onto the nose area. Right, let's leave that for a few minutes and let that glue dry. A few minutes have gone by. Now we can start attaching this to our nose. Now obviously we want to keep this as central as possible. So I'm going to just attach it down the middle to start off with. I'm going to use a few tools here I'm going to tuck it underneath this front edge part here where the foam is. Just going to make sure that's tucked under there. Just use a hard tool to make sure that it sits under, and I can move this 2mm stuff around a little bit as well just to make sure that it sits right down there. That's good. And then I can bring these sides together by pressing them towards each other. Remove any of the excess glue. There we go. I'm just going to give that a few more minutes of dry time. You can see it's pulling away there a bit. So I'm just going to let that dry off a little bit more. And then hopefully the glue will be tacky enough to hold itself once I press that back together again. So let's just leave that for a little while longer. Let's have a look now. Well, that's a bit better. Now we can actually use, if you have one of these tools here, these ball tools, you can actually use this just to finish off the edge. So it's sort of rounding it off slightly. Also, any excess glue tends to bead up while you're using one of these, and it just gets rid of any white line that may exist there from the edges of the 1mm skin. So the other way that you can do it is by using the back edge of the knife. So just sort of rubbing that along the edge surface. But I find the ball is a little gentler and it provides a sort of a better finish. So we've got a little more work to do on this side. Obviously, there's just a tiny bit of misalignment over to the starboard side, which that is. But this is not insurmountable. So you can carry on fiddling around like this just to get a really sort of nice finish to the edges. And once we've done that, I'm just going to get rid of the glue that I got there. My first mode of attack is just by using the ball gently to wipe it away, which seems to be doing a pretty good job. I don't press too hard because it'll dent the actual material, but just a little bit of a rub seems to do the trick. So there we have our fuselage skin part 1 applied to the fuselage itself. Now we can continue this journey by creating our nice wheel or undercarriage legs, which obviously on this aircraft are quite a feature. So let's get the parts for that. We have Z3 and Z2 are the parts that we need now. So these parts also need some beveling and scoring. I'm just removing the extra material from the cut-off point. There we go. Now you'll notice on this side, I'll bring this closer to the camera, there are some little dents there, and there. And these are to indicate the score line for the bottom here. But regardless of that, you've also, on your score guide sheet, we flip it over and we have all of the other parts shown here. So our Z2, we pop that on there, we can see where our score should be as well. So let's just get our little steel rule, and then score along that line there. There we go. Do the same for our Z3 part as well. Make sure it's all nicely lined up. As I said, you could actually take these down just to make sure they don't move. There we go. So on this score, you literally just sort of fold it down like that. And these are the outer surfaces of our legs, our undercarriage legs. You've also got beveling that needs to be done at the edges there and there, and also on here it's missing, but yours will have a fairly stiff bevel across the, or I should say an acute bevel across the top here. And the reason for that is these parts actually sit at the side of the fuselage here, and where it actually comes to bear on the fuselage itself, that it's at a slight angle. Not much of one, so it doesn't need to be full 45 degrees, but there is a slight angle there. So obviously if we sand in a slight bevel, we'll get more contact area, so the glue will be more effective. Anyway, we can continue with our beveling as per the guide. So we're just doing back and front. There we go, and then we'll just put that other bevel on the top part here. There we go. So I'll do the same with the other side. But what I'll do before I do that is show you how to attach this initially to the fuselage. Just clear the decks once again. So the bottom part of this has an oval hole in, and that should actually go through or go over the oval hole of the plastic underneath on the undercarriage, and should line up accordingly. So what you need to do is just add some glue to the lower surface here, and make it a generous amount, because obviously this is an area that gets quite a lot of pressure to it, being the undercarriage. We just want to line that up with the hole, and that's going to fold over like so. But we're just going to leave it there with the edges here all lined up with the edges underneath, and make sure that that hole, that oval, is sitting in the same position as the oval underneath. And we're just going to let that dry off, which gives us the opportunity to crack on and sand this one off. I won't subject you to that. We'll come back once it's ready and we'll get it attached to the fuselage. So we've got both sides attached now, and they're all nicely stuck down and the glue is dried. I may have previously mentioned that these legs actually they're quite flexible. They move forward, and we want them to move forward slightly. That provides us with, when we fold these in, you'll notice you've got a little V shape there and a little V shape there where the body comes together top and bottom. And when we fold these down, we want the material that sits against the fuselage to sit directly over that rear. Probably the easiest way to guide it is over that rear V there. So when we fold this part down so that it comes and touches against the body there, we want it to sit in that position. Obviously this side here is pulling away still a bit, so we've got a little bit of work to do there to make sure it stays together. But yeah, so as a rule, when we fold this down, make sure the leg is moved forward slightly. It should naturally, with the way the geometry works on these parts, but we want that part to sit like so, with the rear of the triangle just sitting by the little triangular cutout there, and that's the perfect position. So to bring the part down to that position, we just need to add some glue in the right places. Firstly, we can stick some glue down the leg itself on the plastics. Just adding a few dabs, obviously down the leg itself, the top of the leg, and then just bead across the top here. Like so. Now we're actually going to fold this down once again to transfer glue over from one side to the other. And when we do, just make sure that that folds into the correct place. And if you can do it straight away, then we shouldn't have too much in the way of glue smeared around that we'll have to clear up later. So just press that all home, let it fall away, and let it dry off. And then we can, once the glue has reached that tack stage where it's going to hold, we can bring it all together again. So I'm going to do exactly the same on this side. Put that bead across the top. That's where the super nozzle really comes in handy. It allows that bead to be well controlled. There we go. And once again, make sure that hits that rear triangle. So obviously you also want it to come to the corner where the the edge of the fuselage comes down as well. So anyway, we'll let that that dry off and come back and put it all together once it has all dried off. So let's bring it all together. Just trying to hit that sweet spot there at the back, and then make sure everything else sits perfectly together. There we go. Just making sure that this edge here is as close together as possible. There we go, and then we will bring this, touch that edge there. There we go. So we've also got access at the moment to the sidewall, so we can actually just make sure that everything is pushed together nicely. That glue is doing the work it should do. There we go. So now we've got our half of the spats on that are needed. So obviously the last part of the process is to cover this area here, which we do with parts Z4 and Z5. Here they are. And all I've got to do is locate my knife. There it is. And let's get these removed. So now once again, these have some scoring and beveling to do. So there's our Z5, there's our Z4. As you can see, and I probably should have mentioned this earlier, the printed side always goes down onto there when we score, obviously, unless otherwise instructed. It needs to be on the inside of the printed material. So let's get our score done. There are a couple of little notches in here as well to indicate where the score goes, so double our chances of getting it right. Go. So that means it flexes nicely, giving a little edge there. Do the same again. There we go. And then the beveling on this is these four edges here. So down there, down there, down there, and down there. And it's more than 45 degrees. It's a more shallow angle. So I'll crack on and do that. Let's just get this out of the way. So obviously, if we want a more shallow angle, we tend to create that angle using the sanding stick. So and obviously holding the part at less than 45. So it's probably around about 30. Once again, the material, once it's thinned out, has the ability to sort of flex and bend and fold over. So it doesn't have to be a precise degree of beveling, just enough to create a point at that edge and enough to provide a good seating point for the glue and the two parts to come together. Go. So there we go. Bevels on all of those four sides there. And let me just show you how that then attaches to our fuselage. So once again, dry fitting at this point is a really good idea. So it literally just covers the area there. Because these have got slight curves on them, it means that there's plenty of material there for the part to sit on. And then obviously we want the edges of the part to match up to the edges of the top portion of the structure as well. So I think the best way of attaching this is by firstly attaching it to the central part here, so that's nice and central. Obviously there's a little cutout here for the little 3D printed axle part that we've got there, and then we can bring the edges together on the sides there and at the leading edge too. So, and then we've got a little bit of work to do on there just to remove those white edges as well. So just get used to the feel of where everything is, how it goes. Just so that it makes your job easier when it comes to bringing these edges completely together and getting rid of those little white lines at the edge. So let's apply our glue. Firstly, I'm going to pop it down the middle of the strut there, and then I'm going to add a bead down the leading edge and the trailing edge. Like so. There we go. And then I can turn my attention to the part and add some glue to the leading and trailing edge on this piece as well. I'm also going to add some glue to where it comes into contact with the underside of the fuselage. Now, I'm not going to put any corresponding glue onto the fuselage itself at this time. We're just going to use the sort of a one-way adhesion, and then we're probably going to add a little CA glue to the join just to strengthen it after this is attached. So I'm going to leave this to one side and let the glue dry on here and on the fuselage, and then we can I can carry on and bevel this side as well, and then I can quickly move on to adding this. Okay, well, I've sanded the other one, but before we do that, let's have a look at the glue on here. No, I think that probably needs a little more time to dry, so we'll glue this one up as well, and prepare that for attachment. Okay. So let's go for it. Initially, we are going to put this centrally on our assembly, and then I'm going to just bring it forward so I can see how it lines up at the front there. See, we want it to fit almost perfectly, which it does. Now, we've got a white line there at the moment, but we are going to take care of that as soon as we can. And then we want to match up the rear section as well, which we should be able to do. That all fits nicely together. Once again, a white line there, but we're going to bring the parts together so that we can reduce that. So we'll give that time to just settle down. Pinch it together a little bit. And you can also use a little bit of compression as well, just to make sure all the parts are sitting where they should. That all looks good. And then once you're happy with that, then I tend to use this now, but you can use, as I've shown before, you can use the back of the knife to just start rounding those corners. But with the ball, it actually works. Let me get this in position right. Then I'm basically putting my finger under there and then bringing the ball to bear on the surface, and you can actually, if the light's right, you can see that surface starts to sort of round itself towards the edge. And then if we turn over, we can do exactly the same the other side. as it rounds itself, and you'll notice that our little sort of white lines at the edge are starting to disappear somewhat. So just going to carry on doing that, and it compresses the two surfaces together really well. So as I said, finger under there, and the ball creates a sort of a little pinch. Just run that along the edge, like so. There we go. We can do it at the front as well. So then the excess glue is just beading off. There we go. I'm not pressing particularly hard as well, so I don't think I'm pressing at all, really. And there we have a nice leading edge. And you can keep pushing it together, and it only improves it to a point until you're happy with it. But the fit should be near perfect if you've got the geometry correct. There we go. Right, I'll do the other one. So I'm going to once again pop this on centrally like so, and then line it up with our leading edge. Then folding over and lining up our trailing edge as well. There we go. So I'll go over the edges with the ball like I did last time, but the other area we can actually use the ball is just pressing this edge down onto the fuselage. So just to make sure we're getting a good bond there. But the other thing we can do as well, it's not absolutely necessary, but just for a little bit of added strength, I'm going to use my CA glue. Just making sure I've got a hole through there. So just got to clear it a little. There we go. So I'm just going to run a bead of CA down these joins. All the way down there. This just adds an extra level of adhesive security. There we go. You can also run a bead down here as well if you so wish. There we go. I'm just going to clean that up with a little, little wipe of the finger. There we go. Almost stuck to it. So that's all looking good now. So as I said, I'm going to just tidy up the attachment of the second leg there, and also pop another bead of CA glue down the joins on the fuselage. And then we shall move on to attaching the deck at the back there. Let's pop this fuselage as it is to one side and get the parts that we need to create the rear deck. So here we go. Z8 is the part that we need. So let's get busy cutting that out. I've already started. Let's just take the last few sprues off. Now this part is not going to need any beveling at all. It actually just needs some scoring. But before we do that, let me just grab the sanding stick and just remove any of the tabs left from cutting it off. So let's bring on our score guide. As you can see here, we've got quite a bit of scoring to do for this particular part, and it gets quite tight down here. So it's fairly important that we get this nice and accurately scored. And my 6-inch rule is going to do the business. And this would be one to tape down if I had any tape, but we're going to go with what we've got. So there's no crossover scoring here. Let's just get rid of that little bit centrally there that the laser cutting didn't remove. There we go. So line this up. Our first score, once again using the back of the knife, top to bottom, and we just keep moving one at a time. Down the whole part. If it moves, you just move it back to where it was. And just continue with the process. Oop, veered off slightly there. So that's the central one. So we're halfway. The last one. There we go. So now we've got this all scored, we just need to pre-bend it. So essentially just rolling the part so that each score bends in turn, like so. Nice and easy up this end. A little more difficult down at the really sort of tight end of the part, the narrow end. And what can be helpful here is the use of just something like a This is a paintbrush, just to use as a method of rolling the foam without it splitting. There we go. So the idea to work every crease equally so that you get a nice even curve of the foam. So be quite delicate down this end. Just take your time working the foam over on each crease. There we go. I think that's probably good enough. So this now fits onto our fuselage just here. So you can see at this bulkhead here that has the sticker on for the rear of the cockpit, you've got the two pieces of 2mm that were laminated previously in the previous part of the build, and what we want to do is drop the this particular part on so that it just covers the one and leaves the shorter 2mm part protruding at the front there. So that's where we want it to sit. And once again, we're going to roll this over in stages. We're going to trust that the part has been cut out so that it fits well. And so what we're going to do first is just glue it in place like so on the on this port side. So what we're going to do is run a bead of glue up the one side of the 2mm. That's the aft or rearmost part, like so. We put some on the cross member at the top here, the longer on, and then on the bulkheads, and then importantly a small bead down the top edge of the 1mm. All the way to the back. There we go. And what we're going to do is just bring this part to bear as it will be when it's finally in place. And just make sure some of that glue is transferred over to the deck. Excellent. Now we can let that dry for a few seconds, well, for about 30 seconds, and then we can pop it into place. Let's do this thing. So, pop it into the correct position there, and then I'm just going to make sure that it sits nicely on top of our 1mm fuselage. Just pressing it home. Now this area here is actually going to be covered over with the sticker as well to help with the joints. So any slight errors or mismatches, not really a problem, but it's nice to get it accurately seated, and then we can just roll this to the top making sure that the edge is flush with the sticker, like so, and then obviously sticking it down to the various formers, bulkheads, etc. So that all looks great. Now this should then roll over, and you can dry fit just to make sure that it sits all the way to the other side. You might need to do a little bit of squeezing just to make sure it's sitting correctly, but you can see that that all rolls over to the other side quite neatly, and that forms up quite the position of that is nice and accurate. So we can now apply glue to this side and get that stuck down. Just laying that bead along the 1mm. Go, and then we'll just bring that to bear so that we can transfer some of that glue over. There we go, and we'll just let it dry off. We'll just a little bit of overspill there, I'll just get rid of. Saves clearing it up at a later stage. There we go. So we'll let that dry off, and we will finish attaching our Z8 part. Let's finish this off. So let's roll it around, make sure it lands in the right spot just up here, and then everything else should fall into place. A little bit of an overlap here, so let's just get a bit of a push out there. Evening up the 1mm foam so it sits on top. And then once again, this ball tool can be used just to secure the seam. Use the smaller one as well for a sort of increased pressure. There we go, that's probably one of the most straightforward parts of the build. We can also just decrease the amount of white edge showing just by compressing foam around this area here as well. So what next? Well, I think our attention must turn to the nose area here. So we've got a bit of work to do around the nose itself, especially with the shaping of these two slabs of 2mm here. We're actually going to carve it. It's easier to carve than it is to sand, and I'm actually going to change the blade on my knife just to be able to cut this material. It cuts a lot better, as I've said probably previously in the video. This stuff is much easier to cut with a really sharp knife. So I'm just going to change the blade on this, and we'll come back and just take the edges off the material here. So here we go. I didn't change the blade. I had another knife that was hanging around that I think has a sharp enough blade on it. So we're literally going to take down these edges here, so you can see the sort of step arrangement. Well, what we're going to do is just take the step off and try and fare it into the shape of the side wall here. So that's what we're using as a guide to take it right across the whole length and to that side there as well. So we follow the contour around there. So it's just a matter of taking slices along the edge there, like so, and just working our way down the material. Now there's a piece of plastic that curves over the front here, a bit of static around as well, so we don't have to make this particularly tidy. What we want to try and avoid doing is just taking any nicks out of any of the printed material that we've got close by this area. The other thing I want to do is just to create a little lip at the front edge here for the plastic to sort of tuck into. So I'm just going to sort of slice along the front edge there. Like so. And then hopefully I should be able to remove that little piece. You have to do it with a knife. There we go. See it coming out. Just trying to release it. There we go. So we've got our little lip there. I'm also going to try and remove a little more from the center here. I seem to have a little bit of a lump in the middle, probably because that motor is a little bit in the way for carving, but that's all right. So I'm almost down to the sidewall here. There's still just a little bit protruding, so I'll try and bring it a little more flush with the side there. The other side seems to be alright. It seems to have right, let's get rid of some of this swarf. And as you can see, it's not particularly smoothly cut. It's fairly overexposing, unfortunately. So, oh, there we go. So you can see it's fairly chopped. In fact, it looks worse on camera than it does to my eye, but there we go. But we have got a that stepped arrangement removed from there. We can, if we so desire, just neaten it up a little with a bit of sanding. I'm using the more aggressive side for the 2mm foam. Just flattening it out a little in the centre where that slight bulge is that I've managed to produce with my carving. Okay, that'll do. Now let's get the plastic part that we're going to pop onto the front there. So we are looking at P12 just there. And what we're going to do with P12 is we're actually going to create a curve. You can see it sits on the front there, like so. But we're going to actually attempt to curve it ourselves so that we're not relying on glue to keep it adhered to the curve at the front. So literally we're just going to squash it and roll it. Create that curve. So once we've got, as you can see, I've probably over curved it there, but what we'll then do is just test fit it. So there we go. That looks pretty good. And don't worry about any small pieces of white foam being exposed, because we're actually putting a sticker over the top of this as well. So looking at mine is slightly protruding at the top here. I want that flush. So it's protruding slightly on both sides. So what I'm going to do is just take a little nick off the top. Like so. There we go. And then all I'm going to do is put a decent amount of glue on the front area here, certainly down the sides here, at the front of the fuselage. Plenty of good coverage. Go. And then put this on. So it's not going to seat firmly at the moment because the glue's not tacky enough, but I'm actually just going to leave it there and then wait for the glue to dry to some extent, and then just push it down to make sure that the glue then reacts to and does what it's supposed to. So just pop that to one side for now. Okay, it's had a few minutes to dry. Let's just pop it into place. Go. Now, the next stage is to put the sticker over the top of this. But before we do that, we need to pop our little magnets in place, because the sticker actually goes over the top of the magnets and helps to keep them in the little cavities here. So what I'm going to do is just add some of the glue into each of these little cavities at the front here. You can see there and there and there. And then I'm going to grab the magnets and just pop them in there and let the glue set. Time to pop these little magnets into their place. It doesn't matter what orientation they go in. That will come when we come to create the hatch. So we'll just pop them in place there and let the whole assembly dry out before we apply our little sticker to the front there. So there we go, the two magnets in place with a little bit of the foam to foam glue. Actually, while we let it dry, I'm going to add some glue just to the surrounding area here, and this just increases the tackiness of the area, so when the sticker comes to rest, it's going to have even more adherence to that area. It also folds over along the back as well, so I'm just going to put some at the back too, and then it's in a sort of nice permanent fixture. Those magnets obviously get pulled around as you take the hatch on and off, only by tiny amounts, but obviously the more secure we can make it in that area, the better. So we'll let that glue go off as well, and then it'll act as a sticky contact adhesive once we come and put the sticker on. So the sticker we need is S5, and I've actually previously peeled this off. Now, when coming to apply it, the best way to align is by lining up this little dimple in the middle here with the dimple just down below the motor here. So that should just sit over like that. And make sure it's square-ish. And then it can be popped into place down the bottom there. Use our tools to flatten it out should you get any little creases in it. And then we can roll it over the top here, like so. And then fold down the back. And that extra bit of glue that we put on should secure everything nicely. And then just to sort of finish off, we can press it down a little bit further, bring the edges of the foam in, neaten it all up at the front there, so we can work on that. But now we've got a nice platform for our top hatch to come and sit on, and obviously the magnets are doing their job there. There we go. Right, one more sticker we can apply, which is where our keel protrudes through the skin there, and that part is S8. So let's just grab S8. There we go. And it's just a matter of concealing it underneath, like so. There we go. Right, the next phase of the build is to actually build up the tail. So up here, you have got a selection depending on which aircraft you've got. If it's the bipe, choose the tail build for the bipe, and if it is the air race, choose the tail build for the air race. Entirely up to what you have in front of you. And I'll see you in the next video.